Sato is a lonely loser who's on the path to die a virgin. However, when he accidentally rizzes up his hot teacher, she lets him crack it everywhere. It all starts when Sato heads to the men's restroom in school to play with his banana man, only to get the shock of his life when he sees his busty hot teacher Kana using it. She is certain she locked the door, but Sato anxiously says the lock is broken. She sternly asks why he didn't check before entering, so he reminds her it's the men's restroom, and she shouldn't come here to begin with. Realizing her mistake, she agrees to let it slide and tells him to just skedaddle out of there, but the lock gets stuck and the door won't open. At this, Kana gives him a death stare, and the bro starts shaking because Kana is the school's dictator, known for handing out harsh punishment. As he starts screaming for someone to rescue him, Kana tells him to lower his voice or she won't be able to hold her water supply. Sato is terrified because she will flush him down the toilet too if he sees her doing it, but just then, they hear some guys enter the bathroom. Kana instinctively pulls Sato toward him, and he lands face first on her jugs.
Yeah, boy.
Just then, a stray ball hits the bathroom wall and startles Kana, and she's unable to hold it any longer. Seeing her in this state shocks Sato, but just as she gets up to slam his head against the wall, he quickly embraces her, much to her confusion. She asks what he's doing, so Sato says seeing her like this has pushed him past his limits.
I'm gonna come.
So he too lets it go like Elsa in Frozen. A week later, Sato is by the pool, still thinking about Kana's Golden Globes, and when his friend Suzuki asks if he's okay, he deflects by telling Suzuki that he looks like he works as a janitor in the ladies' room. After that, he tells Suzuki that he's going to the nurse's office to ditch class, but on the way, he runs into another busty teacher named Mayu. After apologizing, he quickly dashes away, and Suzuki assures Mayu that Sato is fine. Meanwhile, Sato reaches the infirmary and is shocked to find Kana, who's dressed like she's about to hit it on the floor.
Wow! Beautiful!
She asks what he's doing here during class time, so he anxiously says he's sprained his ankle and needs help. Kana responds that she's come down with a cold and is getting some rest, but when she starts sweating, Bro's internal diddler tells him that it's time to smash. Kana then asks if he'd be so kind as to bring her meds from the cabinet, so he frantically searches and panics when he only finds a suppository tablet. When Kana learns of this, she gets in position and asks Sato to just give it to her. Sato starts to freak out because it's moving too fast, but when he notices that she's on the verge of blacking out, he asks if she's sure about it. Kana says she's sure but asks him not to look too much. At this, Bro puts a blindfold on and trusts the process, but when he almost administers it in the wrong spot, she scolds him and guides him to the right one. Seconds later, he administers the medicine, which causes Kana to hit an Ariana Grande-like high note. But when they hear Mayu coming, Kana pulls Sato in and hides him under the blanket. Mayu then checks in on her and, after confirming that Kana is feeling better, advises her to rest before leaving. Afterward, Sato expects her to go off on him, but she simply pats his head with a smile and thanks him for everything he did for her. The next day, Sato himself comes down with a cold, all thanks to Kana. So she comes to nurse him to health but gets shy when she recalls what happened yesterday. Just when Sato thinks she might not be the dictator everyone says she is, she suddenly gets angry with him for lying about spraining his ankle. He asks how she came to know of this, and she says Suzuki snitched on him to Miss Mayu. Now, as punishment, Kana will give him the same suppository medicine so he knows what it feels like. A few days later, Sato heads to the laundromat to shelter from the rain and is shocked when he runs into Kana, who's drenched to the point that her cupcakes are showing. To make matters worse, she clutches her jugs and says she got wet on her way home, but Sato looks to control himself. He then asks Kana to dry her clothes in the dryer, but she gets upset because she doesn't have extra clothes and assumes Sato wants to see the color of her melon holders. Bro quickly clarifies the misunderstanding, but he can't help feel intimidated by her aura, so he offers his own shirt to Kana before she brings out the dictator. Sato thought this would help his South Pole situation, but Kana looks even more busty in his shirt. As they wait for the rain to stop, the thunder goes off, and Sato notices Kana cowering because she's scared of lightning. When he asks if she's actually afraid, she springs up and denies it, but when lightning strikes again, she latches onto him and unintentionally gets too close to him.
Nice.
Sato begs her to get off, but things get worse as the power circuit trips and the dryer stops working. To fix it, Sato suggests they flip the power back on, but the switch is high up, so Sato carries Kana on her shoulders so she can reach it. Being in that position makes him blush, but when he looks up to a good view,
Wow! Beautiful!
Bro suddenly loses his footing and bumps Kana into the back wall. This knocks the liquid detergent off the shelf onto Kana's shirt, so Sato suggests she get off her shoulders. She agrees, but when he tries to grab her, his hands slip off the shirt, and he ends up getting handsy. In a panic, he quickly pulls the shirt back down, but the buttons of her shirt pop out and expose her Golden Globes, turning the scene into a censoring nightmare. Seconds later, Sato is sitting in the corner saying his last prayer, but Kana is more focused on how to get the power back on. Her dishwasher brain comes up with a plan to get Sato on her shoulders instead, but when he asks if she does leg day, she suddenly fires up and lifts him on her shoulder. Bro is such a bottom that it makes his south pole rise, and once Kana senses it poking the back of her head, she gives a slap to remember. Weeks later, Sato arrives at his grandparents' home to get some peace, only to be shocked when he sees Kana babysitting his sister. Turns out Kana was also born in the same region, and Sato's mom asked her to babysit. Sato is surprised that Kana is friends with her mom, but knowing her, he asks if she's really suited for the babysitting job. Kana quickly says she is because she can hush the brats with her aura, but when she tries to demonstrate, the brat starts crying even more. Finally, she admits that she is not good at babysitting, and just today, her parents urged her to get married and give them little nuggets, but she wonders if she'll be able to handle her many little demons when she can't even handle one brat. At this, Sato softly says Kana is earnest, so she must have a high standard for a partner. She says all she wants is someone who's younger, good at caring for people, and who can handle brats. Suddenly, she realizes that Sato meets all those criteria, and it makes them both blush. Kana then quickly clears that she didn't mean him, but it's so awkward that Sato suggests they play with his sister. He adds that she likes water, so Kana goes to grab her swimsuit. Minutes later, she's in the tub with the girl and asks Sato to join, but Bro says he's good because Kana's massive milkers are staring him in the face. Suddenly, Kana splashes water on his face and tells him not to stare, so Sato bumps his head against the wall to show how sorry he is. He then notices how lively and vulnerable she is outside of school and wonders if she's always like that. Just then, his younger sister pulls the strap from Kana's swimsuit and exposes her melons to sunlight. Kana instinctively recoils back and pushes the girl out of the tub, but both Sato and Kana quickly catch her. This also causes their lips to touch, leaving them shocked and embarrassed. As they separate, they feel something in their hearts, but Sato's sister gets mesmerized by the sheer size of Kana's jugs and goes in for a sip. Kana lets her do it because she thinks the girl sees her as a motherly figure, and it means she's ready to be a mom. All she needs is a 6-foot alpha male with 8 inches in the trunk, but she quickly clarifies that she wasn't projecting on Sato. That night, as Sato's mom, Saki, returns, she tells Kana that if she is looking for a partner, her son is available. This makes Kana fumble her words, so after Saki says she was just joking, Kana leaves the kitchen and recalls the accidental kiss. She then tells herself that it was an accident, and people also kiss casually, so it's fine as long as they don't play in the sheets. Just then, she walks into the room and hears Sato saying he's warmed up the futon.
Yeah, boy.
So she panics thinking he wants to smash. At this, she gets enraged, not knowing that he was talking to his younger sister, who is already sleeping. Days later, Sato heads to his room, where he has stashed hundreds of Gunner manga, only to be shocked when he sees Kana there. He asks what she's doing here, so she explains Saki invited her and then asked her to wait in this room. Just then, Saki enters the room with drinks, and Kana passes her a cold look for intentionally making her sit in her son's room, but Saki plays innocent. She then teases Kana for being so angry all the time and then offers her a drink, which immediately makes her pass out. Saki then realizes Kana is a light drinker, so Sato scolds her for not remembering. Just then, Kana wakes up all drunk and shows Saki a photo album she brought from the time they were classmates. Saki reveals that Kana used to be a cutie patootie back then, and she never imagined that she'd become a teacher. Just then, Kana points to a picture of a young Sato, saying that this young boy gave her the push she needed to become a teacher. Years ago, she was walking by a bridge when she saw Sato, but she was so nervous that she couldn't even talk to him. This made her doubt her future, but when Sato jumped off the bridge into the water, she instinctively went after him and ended up drenched as well. Afterward, she took him home and gave him a bath, warning him never to jump into a river like that. Sato apologized and said he just wanted to be a grown-up, and his classmates told him jumping off the bridge would speed up the process. Kana recalled this being an old custom, but she told him it was a load of nonsense, and he got fooled. She also wished it was that easy to be a grown-up so she could talk to people with more confidence, but Sato told her she was doing just fine with him. He thought it was because she also jumped off the bridge, which meant both of them had grown up. This gave Kana a new perspective on life, and even to this day, she feels grateful to have met the boy, which she doesn't know is actually Sato. She admits that even today, when she's in her dictator mode, she still remembers what that boy taught her. At this, Sato freaks out as he realizes he's the reason she's become like this, so when Kana says she doesn't remember the boy's name, Sato covers Saki's mouth so she doesn't spill it. Saki pushes him back and then tells Kana that the boy in the picture is Sato. Immediately, he bows down and apologizes to Kana, but she jumps into his arms and says she was dying to see him again. She says she owes her life to him and needs to do something to repay him, and Saki mischievously suggests Kana take care of Sato. Kana immediately agrees, but when Saki tells her what she actually meant, Kana goes red and collapses. After that, Saki tells Sato to swipe Kana's V card and runs off, leaving him alone with a drunk Kana. She immediately hugs him and starts snuggling while saying that she wants to pay him back. Then suddenly, she spots a Gunner magazine under his table and realizes that Sato likes his women thick like his wallet, so she asks if he wants to squeeze some stress balls.
It should have been me, not him!
Sato covers his eyes like a certified virgin and says he can't because she's his teacher, but she asks him to call her big sis instead. She then starts demonstrating the jiggle physics. Just then, Saki enters the room and playfully tells Sato to keep it up, but he frantically says that it's all a big misunderstanding. Just then, Kana falls asleep on the bed with her jugs out, and Bro is not beating the allegations. The next day in school, Sato runs into Kana in the halls, and she apologizes for yesterday. He says it's fine and calls her big sis, but she gets upset and scolds him for it, making him think she doesn't remember anything from yesterday. However, Kana turns the corner and goes red in embarrassment because being called big sis made her cookie moist. A few days later, Sato is at a beach because he's invited to Saki's friend's wedding, but once again, Kana crashes the party with her swimsuit and giant melons. While Kana is playing with Shio, Sato asks why she's here, so Saki says their dad couldn't come and they had an extra ticket, so why not? Besides, she believes Kana is going to be family anyway, but Sato says he has no idea what she's saying. At this, Saki says it's very clear that Kana has feelings for him, but Sato freaks out because he had no idea Kana likes him. Saki urges him to shoot his shot and see for himself, and to help, she lets them be alone together. After she and Shio leave, Kana asks Sato if he wants to have some fun before the ceremony, which makes his mind go wild. She then takes him to a discreet spot and suggests they set up camp away from people. At this, Sato begins to wonder if this crackhead truly likes him, but he also realizes she hasn't shown any signs of it. Right on cue, she asks Sato to apply sunscreen on her back, and he brushes it off by thinking it's because she has no one else to ask. She then removes her plot cover and lets him rub it on her back, which makes Sato remember all the times she's shown him her soft side. He thinks out loud that maybe Kana does like him, and without thinking, she responds that she is indeed in love with him. However, she quickly snaps to reality and turns around, which causes Sato's hands to get a grip of her honka-donkas. He quickly backs off, apologizing, but Kana goes red and asks him not to think of it until he graduates. She then jumps into the water out of embarrassment, but Sato can't comprehend that she actually loves him. Just then, she begs him to help because his legs are cramped up, so Sato pulls her out, and she apologizes for jumping in without thinking. Just then, she feels something biting her, and then looks at the signboard, warning that the water has venomous sea snakes. At this, she clings to Sato and starts to panic, thinking she's going to die, but Sato says he won't let her, and decides to suck out the venom. However, the bite is too close to her water fountain,
Oh my god!
and she's too shy to let him do it. To make matters worse, her legs are cramped up, so Sato has to put her in an awkward position to save her life. After the first time, she tells him to stop, but her hand pushes Sato's head into her chamber of secrets, causing her floodgates to open. She then passes out, so Sato takes her to the hospital. After they return, Saki learns that the doctors found no venom, and asks Kana why she passed out, and she shyly says the sensation was too much. Sato jumps in to cover it up, but Saki realizes what happened and tells Sato she's proud of his game. She then asks him if he found out how Kana feels about him, but he shyly says she's just his teacher. Even then, she runs off excited, and afterward, Kana thanks Sato for saving her life. As they walk to the wedding hall, Sato says they had lots of fun despite the incident. After they watch the bride and the groom kiss, Sato asks Kana if she'd come here again with him after they graduate, but she assumes he's asking her to marry him, and gets upset because he's moving things too fast. That night, she returns to the city and goes to a bar with Ma Yu, who asks her how her trip went. Kana admits it was fun, but she also got into an accident. Ma Yu asks if something happened between her and Sato, but Kana quickly says no, though her expressions say otherwise. Just then, Sato calls Kana, and she begins chatting with him on the phone, which makes Ma Yu wish she had someone to call as well. She then pulls out her phone, lamenting how she doesn't even have Suzuki's phone number and wishes she could tell him how she feels. The next day, Sato tells Suzuki that he and Kana have started dating, which makes the guy freak out. Sato tells him to keep it down because they're not making it public, adding that from now on, he'll be having lunch with Kana. This makes Suzuki's heart break because he has no other friends, so he'll now have to eat alone. Sato tells him it's because he looks like he's on the offenders list, and if he wasn't his senior, he'd stay away too. Unbeknownst to them, Ma Yu is listening in on the whole thing and feels bad for Suzuki. Sato tells Suzuki that he will be graduating in a few months anyway, so he encourages Suzuki to make new friends. After that, he runs off, and as Suzuki prepares to be alone, Ma Yu joins him and makes his heart race. She asks if he wants to have lunch with her, which leaves the guy confused. She says it's fun to have lunch with others and wonders if she's bothering him, but he says she's not. He then asks if he's afraid of him too, but she gently touches his hand and tells him not to be silly. Her kindness makes the guy tear up, and he realizes that she has that charm that makes her popular among students. After that, they both open their lunch boxes and Ma Yu is impressed by Suzuki's cooking. She says she's also learning how to cook, so she suggests they share lunch with each other. While Suzuki is blushing, she suddenly asks him to open wide so she can feed him, but Suzuki simply passes his lid to her, which makes her realize she made him nervous by being too forward. While she's apologizing, she suddenly slips into the pond behind, and Suzuki's attempt to save her results in her cakes being exposed. After she falls, her shoe gets stuck in something, so Suzuki also steps inside to help her out. He grabs her by the leg and pulls her out, but when she points out that the pose is too freaky, Suzuki gets on his knees to apologize to her, but Mayu tells him it's fine. Being a gentleman, he offers his own sweater to Mayu, and this makes her heart warm. After that, he just leaves, and Mayu sniffs his sweater, thanking the plot gods for the gift. Later in the changing room, Kana notices that Mayu is wearing Suzuki's sweater and asks if she has feelings for the guy. Mayu gets shy and says a teacher must never fool around with a student, and Kana feels guilty because she's cranking it with Sato. Seeing her face, Mayu quickly clarifies that she wasn't throwing shade, adding that Suzuki is just trying to make friends, and she wants to help him in that. Seeing her blush, Kana quickly figures that Mayu does like him, but just then, Suzuki's computer pass falls out of his sweater. Immediately, Mayu heads to the station to return it to him, but before she can leave the train, the door closes. Since it's crowded, they both end up squeezed against the door, and Suzuki feels awkward because they're face to face and he doesn't know what to say. Just then, Mayu notices that her shirt got stuck in the door, and as she tries to pull it out, the train turns and pushes him into Suzuki. This makes both of them flustered, but when Suzuki asks her to let go, she says she can't because her shirt is open and her yiddies are out. Feeling her softballs against him, he asks why she isn't wearing a peach protector, and she reveals it's because she was in a hurry. At this, Suzuki opens his jacket to give her cover, which allows her to turn towards the door. However, he gets pushed from the back, and now Mayu is pressed against the glass door with her golden globes on display. To make matters worse, they're both locked in position because of the crowd. So Suzuki decides to take matters into his own hands and button up her shirt. However, he ends up taking something else into his hands, which causes Mayu to make happy noises. Not realizing his mistake, he keeps squeezing and trying to fasten the button, but by the time he realizes what's wrong, Mayu has already reached Cloud 9. When they reach the station, Suzuki somehow fixes the shirt and begs for an apology, but the guard shows up and asks Mayu if this man is harassing her. Immediately, Mayu grabs Suzuki's arm and says they're a couple, then quietly asks Suzuki to play along so the guard doesn't bother them. However, Suzuki refuses to do it even as an act because he doesn't want Mayu to be more embarrassed than she already is. However, Mayu freezes because she thinks Suzuki doesn't want to date her, even as an act. A few days later, Suzuki is picking up an order from a restaurant, but everyone is nervous around him because he looks scary. Just then, he notices Mayu in the next line, and her charming aura balances out the room. As they both leave together, they talk and learn that they live close to each other, and Suzuki is here to grab lucky meals for their younger siblings. Mayu says she got the meal for herself and got a toy panda from it, even though her sister told her she was too old for it. Just then, it starts to rain, and they both don't have an umbrella, but Suzuki's siblings, Suzu and Rei, come running in with one. Since Mayu lives close, Suzuki offers to share it with her, and as they walk together, Mayu blushes as it's a dream come true for her. She also notices Suzuki's siblings jumping around in their raincoats, and it makes her smile. They then ask Suzuki to open their lucky meals for presents, and while Rei gets a panda, Suzu gets a fish, which she hates. Seeing this, Mayu offers to trade her toy panda with her fish, which makes Suzu jump with happiness. This causes the fish to go from her hand directly into Mayu's bouncy castle, and as it starts flapping, Mayu's face goes red. Seeing this, Rei asks if she's okay, but she says she's fine and hands the panda to Suzu. Immediately, Suzu goes in for a hug, but this pushes the fish further into her and makes her knees weak. Just then, they see a truck coming their way, so Suzuki tries to get everyone away from the road, but the handle of his umbrella gets stuck with Mayu. As she holds back her noises, a gust of wind pushes the umbrella higher, and, paired with the flapping of the fish, it begins to rain in her south. After the truck leaves, Suzuki asks her why she's acting strange, but Mayu says everything is fine and that she needs to run home. Seeing her rush away, the siblings wonder if she's loose in the head. Once she returns home, her younger sister Saya barges into the bathroom to scold her for buying a toy, but Mayu starts blushing and says this is a toy suitable for her age, which confuses Saya. A few days later, Sato shows up at the bar to take a drunken Kana home, and Mayu thanks him for being a gentleman. After they leave, Mayu chugs another drink and realizes how lucky Kana is to have a man who cares for her. She then looks at her phone, wondering if she should call Suzuki, and it reminds her of the day she first met him. 3 years ago, Mayu had a teacher's exam, but she ran late due to traffic and had to go on foot. While she was running, her shoe broke and she fell on her face, which broke her spirit, and she accepted that she wouldn't make it in time. That's when Suzuki found her, and her first reaction to his face was just like everybody else's, but she calmed down and thanked him for the help. He then asked why she was in a hurry, so she told him about the exam, but added that she wouldn't make it because her shoe broke. Suzuki asked which school she was applying to, and once she told him, Suzuki picked her up and ran as fast as he could. However, the earlier fall had undone her plot covers, and the constant bumping made everything worse. Just then, Suzuki took a shortcut from the stairs, and when he finally stopped in front of the university, his buckle pressed against Mayu's cookie jar, which made her curl her feet. Not only did he give her the time of her life, but he also dropped her off on time and even fixed her broken shoe, and Mayu felt heavily indebted to him. When she apologized, Suzuki told her that it was no trouble, and he even got a good workout because of her, so everything worked out as intended. This gesture made Mayu's heart race, so when Suzuki wished her good luck and left, she realized that she was infected with love at first sight. At present, she suddenly wakes up hammered and sees Suzuki carrying her, which freaks her out. She asks what's going on. So Suzuki reveals Sato called him and told him to pick Mayu up because she's alone in the bar. At this, Mayu apologizes for causing him trouble, but he says it's no big deal because it's a good workout for him. This reminds her of the day she fell in love with him, so she simply smiles and thanks him for being here. A few days later, the school is holding the Kawanuma festival, and Saya, Mayu, and Suzuki are overseeing things. Before them stands a junior named Taka, who's waiting for his advisor to show up. Seconds later, a crazy tomboy barges into the room and puts Takashi in a chokehold, demanding that he give her some food. Just then, she notices everyone else in the room and comments that both Mayu and Sayu are cuties. She then asks Taka if he likes his women with big jugs or flat with glasses, but Taka tells her to read the room and shut up. He then tells them that this freaky degenerate is his advisor, Hikari, but she's already ruined her first impression. After Hikari embarrasses him, he decides to head home and encourages himself to look past today and do his best. However, as he enters his room, he finds Hikari casually lying in his bed and freaks out. He asks what she's doing in his room, so she says her heater broke down, so she came here to chill. She then pulls him into bed and buries his face between her bazookas, saying she can finally sleep in peace now. Turns out, Taka and Hikari live in the same apartment complex and have been childhood friends, and since she is older than him, she often used him as a toy. Even now, she hasn't changed, but Taka believes he's old enough now and asks her to let go, only to see that she's already dozed off. When he tries to sneak away, he suddenly notices that her shirt is open and her melon carrier is also undone. Now panicking, he tries to hook it back before she notices, but he pulls so hard that it completely comes off. Not noticing this, Hikari pulls Taka back into a hug, and this causes him to get a mouthful.
Oh my god!
He tries to separate again, but Hikari locks him in place as she's strong due to being a gym teacher. In the end, Bro just gives up and lets plot gods decide his fate, only for Hikari to wake up from her nap. Taka realizes his screen time is over, but Hikari simply pats his head, thinking he misses his mama, and leaves to get some food. Taka sighs in relief, and he also thinks that Hikari does not see him as a man. Unbeknownst to him, Hikari is in shock, wondering if Taka is old enough to dominate her, but she refuses to accept this and vows to be the Dami Mommy. Later, Hikari drags Taka to the toy store, and when he asks what they're buying, she mischievously says she's taking him adult shopping. Minutes later, she takes him to the plot armor store, casually telling him that her melons have grown and she needs new carriers. Taka says that's not his domain and tries to leave, but she holds him in a choke and demands that he pick one for her. After she steps into the changing room, Taka finds himself with an impossible task, so he picks one pair without looking and gives it to Hikari. Once Hikari sees them, she realizes they're too freaky, but she thinks Taka is trying to dominate her, so she puts them on to take back control. However, the plot covers are see-through, and she feels super embarrassed about Taka seeing her in this state. Just then, Taka asks if she's dressed yet, and she says yes without thinking. So Taka simply pulls her out with his eyes closed and suggests they leave this place. She tries to explain to him that her jacket is open, but he doesn't listen and drags her outside. Once on the escalator, he finally sees that she's exposed, and since she can't use her hands to close her jacket, she asks Taka to do it for her. As he does it, Hikari's jugs get stuck, which makes Taka panic, but when he's about to fall back, she quickly pulls him into another hug to stop him. In doing so, she accidentally places her cakes on the moving bar of the escalator, which gives her so many sensations that she just gives up trying to dominate him. Afterward, they head to a restaurant, and although Hikari is upset, she quickly gets over it and admits she had fun today. She also says she's older and grown-ups don't hold grudges, right before she leaves to grab a drink. In her absence, Taka reflects on her words and her soft side, which he saw today, and wonders if she's changed. Just then, she returns and excitedly tells him she mixed all the drinks to make this disgusting soda, which makes him realize she's still a doofus. A few days later, Taka is hiking a mountain for a school trip, and when Hikari shows up, he gets anxious and hides behind a tree. His mind starts playing the scenes that happened at the mall, and he admits that he is infatuated with her. When Hikari comes close to make sure he's okay, he recoils back and almost falls into the river, but Hikari grabs him at the last second. However, she loses her own footing, and they both end up in the water. To make matters worse, it starts to rain, so they have to take shelter in a cave and wait for their clothes to dry up. Taka apologizes, saying it's his fault, but Hikari says it's fine, and she shouldn't have hassled him either. Now they both have to wait for the rain to stop, and Hikari is a bit worried because Taka's immune system is weaker than his Riz game. Right on cue, Taka passes out from the cold, and Hikari recalls seeing a method on TV that can help save his life. Suddenly, she removes her plot armor and tells him to cuddle with her so they can share body heat. But Taka gets feverish and asks for something to drink. Before she can grab a water bottle, Taka sees raindrops on her and decides to drink directly from the source. Afterward, he rests in her lap and she plays with his hair. She tells him that her heart sinks at the thought of something happening to him. And hearing this makes Taka realize that although Hikari is a menace, she has always been incredibly kind. He also realizes the feelings he has in his heart for her have been there for years, so he tells her she's the best big sis, making Hikari smile. He also says that he loves her, so Hikari becomes flustered and asks what he means, but Taka dozes off before answering her. A few days later, it's time for the Kaonuma festival, and while the other students are enjoying the day, Suzuki is stuck with Mayu, who wants his help with some errands. He asks her why she's wearing a school uniform, and she says she is disguising herself as a student so she can also enjoy the festival. She asks if she looks weird, but Suzuki says she looks nice, which makes her blush. Just then, they run into Hikari, who immediately recognizes Mayu and asks if she's on a date with Suzuki. Before she can answer, Hikari says she came at the perfect time, as they need volunteers for a game called Cops and Robbers. The goal is to find a criminal running around the school and capture them with handcuffs. Hikari then puts them on Mayu and says these handcuffs serve another purpose too, and it may help Mayu get laid with Suzuki since she likes him. She then takes them to a room where the key is hidden and locks the door behind her, telling them to have fun. Once inside, Suzuki starts looking for the key while Mayu asks if he heard what Hikari said, but he says he didn't, which puts her at ease. In reality, Suzuki heard everything and is freaking out because he heard everything. Once he finds the key, he turns around to uncuff Mayu, but gets startled because she's too close, which causes the key to leave his hand and fall in Mayu's shirt, conveniently unhooking her peach protectors. Her shirt gets lifted too, which causes her honka badonkas to come out, but Suzuki tries his best to avert his gaze and look for the key. However, Mayu reveals that the key is stuck in her cakes, and she can't get it herself because her hands are cuffed. Just then, they hear Taka at the door, so they realize they have to get this done quickly. Mayu asks Suzuki to close his eyes and lifts her skirt, suggesting that he follow her guide to locate the key. When she says she trusts him, Suzuki decides to reach out his hands, but he ends up squeezing her stress balls. In a panic, she pushes his head down, and Suzuki manages to get the key out, but he also gives Mayu a day to remember. Afterward, he uncuffs her and apologizes for it, but she tells him not to worry about it. However, Suzuki believes he always causes her trouble even when she trusts him, which comes as a shock to Mayu because he's been nothing but kind and helpful. Suzuki mentions the time at the fountain and at the train, but she says that he was only trying to help, and she does not mind it because she's in love with him. Suddenly, she panics as she realizes that she confessed and immediately leaves the room, while asking him to forget what he heard. However, Suzuki is flustered and asks himself if it's really okay for him to love Mayu back, only to see that Sato and Taka are already in love with their respective teachers. Later, Takashi and Saya head to the old school building to inspect it for the festival's evening event, but they're surprised to find Hikari stuck on the floor. It turns out the three of them were supposed to check the building together, but Hikari ran off on her own after getting jealous of how mature Takashi had been acting. Trying to prove she could handle things herself, she rushed inside, only for a rotten floorboard to give way beneath her. After she wakes up, Saye asks why she entered the building alone in the first place. Embarrassed, Hikari admits she was planning to pretend to be a ghost and scare him. Although Takashi sighs at her prank, he isn't surprised since she's always pulling stunts like this. Saya suggests leaving immediately to get some help for Hikari, but before Takashi can go, Hikari clings to his leg and timidly asks him to stay. At that moment, the weakened floor collapses again, sending Takashi crashing down. As he looks up to make sure Hikari is okay, he ends up getting a view a lot of you would pay money for, which makes him panic. Hikari is still clinging to the floor, but he tells her she can safely come down because the hole is bigger now. However, Hikari is embarrassed because Taka is getting his premium view, and to make matters worse, she has to use the bathroom. Not knowing this, Taka decides to lift her legs to help her land, so she anxiously tells him about her situation. Thinking quickly, Bro brings out a bucket and asks her to use this instead of his face, but she says she doesn't want to ruin her fabric and asks him to pull it to the side. As he shyly does as asked, she finally lets it go like frozen right as Saya returns with Suzuki. Afterward, Suzuki fixes the floor, and Taka is relieved that no one noticed the bucket. Hikari is embarrassed too, and decides to make Taka wet himself to even things out, but he avoids her and walks away with the others, leaving her shocked. She believes seeing her take a leak made him disgusted, but in reality, Taka is just being considerate of her by giving her space. Because of the misunderstanding, Hikari dresses up as a bear to scare couples. Meanwhile, Mayu and Taka are outside when Sayu arrives and tells them about the bear who's running wild. However, facing the scary bear is only bringing the couples closer. So Hikari's plan is backfiring really hard. Thinking that it's a good fortune, Mayu blushes as she can use this to get closer to Suzuki, so she runs off to find it. Turns out the whole Gunner gang is running after the bear to get some good luck, but Hikari somehow manages to outrun them and hide in a classroom. She's even more frustrated at the whole thing after remembering how Taka avoided her, especially because he used to cling to her all the time, even when she told him to get lost. Just then, Taka enters the room and asks what she was trying to do, so she asks how he knows it was her in the bear costume. Bro says he knows only she is crazy enough to do something like this, and then asks her to go out with her. Just then, they hear some guys coming. Hikari pulls him back into the room and locks the door. However, Taka gets stuck inside her costume and notes that she isn't wearing any plot armor. They try their best to untangle themselves, but it only results in Hikari reaching Cloud 9. Soon after, Saya and Suzuki arrive and suggest they head back, but Hikari grabs Taka's hand and shyly tells him that only she gets to taste his banana. Taka realizes that the awkward confession and the selfish reply are exactly what make them who they are, so he smiles and says he'll be with her. Meanwhile, Mayu is still searching for the bear and suddenly runs into a tall figure. She thinks it's the bear and begs it to make her love story with Suzuki come true, only to look up and see that it's Suzuki and Saya. Suzuki says he's a broke-ass student and can't get her Gucci bags, but if she's okay with that, then he'd love to do Fortnite dances on the bed with her. Hearing this makes Mayu pass out, so Sayu catches her and asks Suzuki to take it slow. A few days later, the boys visit a cafe where their senior Tanaka works, and when he learns Suzuki and Sato are dating their teachers, he is surprised. To make it worse, Sato tells him Taka is also dating his teacher, and the guy freaks out as he realizes he's the only virgin in the friend group. He then declares that he will get a chick in 3 months so they can all go on a quadruple date. After that, he goes back into the kitchen to work, but his boss asks him to carry cooking oil outside. As he takes the container outside, still thinking of how to get a girlfriend, he suddenly bumps into someone and spills oil on them. That someone turns out to be his teacher Chizuru, so he immediately takes her to the locker room and looks for new clothes for her. In response, she says she'd rather sip on coffee than sit through his apology. Her cold demeanor makes Takashi feel the chills, and he finally understands why everyone calls her Absolute Zero. Turns out, she's a nurse at school, but she's so cold towards the students that they avoid her. At this, Bro shuts up and offers her a new shirt, but she doesn't hesitate once and starts changing in front of him. Tanaka anxiously asks her to wait for him to leave, but she says it's fine and continues. Even then, Tanaka decides to leave the room, but he trips on the oily shirt and falls on Chizuru. Seconds later, he realizes he's motorboating Chizuru's fun bags, and he starts enjoying it until she sternly tells him to get off. He tries to get off but can't as he has sprained his ankle. He's also shocked at how calm and collected Chizuru looks despite being in such an embarrassing spot. However, things change as Chizuru's milk valves begin to open, and she covers his face to hide the embarrassment. She begs Tanaka not to look, but Bro gets lost in the sauce and passes out with a nosebleed. Later, he begs for forgiveness, but she tells him it's fine and reminds him that his ankle is still sprained. She then asks him to show it to her, but Tanaka misunderstands what she said and leaves the room, leaving her to think she's bad at her job. Later, she meets Hikari and asks how she can befriend her students, so Hikari tells her that her expressionless face makes it impossible to guess what she's thinking. Chizuru looks at the mirror and works on her expressions, so Hikari advises her to start with someone close and get to know them better. Immediately, she recalls Tanaka motorboating her jugs and realizes he's the right guy. A few days later, it's Christmas Eve, and Tanaka is alone at home, or so we thought, because Chizuru is there dressed as Santa while holding a camera. He asks her why she's here and why she's filming, and she says she's trying to get to know him better, plus she's recording so she doesn't miss any details. He asks why she chose him, and she coldly says it's because she knows he has no shawties. Despite feeling embarrassed, he admits he'd like to know her better too, so Chizuru decides to start from the beginning by showing him her album. Through this, he realizes she likes to write her name on her things, but he says he wants to learn more about the current Chizuru, so she shows him a picture of last year, celebrating Christmas alone. She also says she makes a video every year because she loves Christmas, but ever since she moved out of her parents' house, she's been all alone. However, she got to spend Christmas with him this year, so she's happy. At this, Tanaka starts to blush, wondering if Chizuru has feelings for him, but he calms his horse and says he can make a video for her. Just as he turns the camera on, the screen starts showing Chizuru's drumsticks, so he recoils and almost ruins the cake. Chizuru quickly stops it from falling but ends up sitting on top of Tanaka. He asks her to get off, but she says she can't or the cake will fall. Just then, the beer bottle opens on its own and drenching her undies. At the same time, Tanaka looks at the screen, which is displaying a live feed from the camera, and sees that she has written her name even on her plot armor. At this, Chizuru covers his eyes and shyly says he doesn't need to know so much about him in one night. Afterward, he gives her his boxers, and she promises to return them soon. Before leaving, she gives him a bag, saying it's a gift for him, making him see rainbows. Bro thanks him and runs into his room to grab a present for her too, adding that he had prepared it beforehand in case he had asked someone out for Christmas. She opens it to find a cute teddy bear inside, so she immediately writes her name on it. After that, she thanks Tanaka, and even though she's not smiling, he knows she's happy. After she leaves, he looks into the bag to see what she got him, and it turns out to be her drenched plot cover, which freaks him out. Unbeknownst to her, Chizuru accidentally gave him the wrong bag. A few days later, Tanaka heads to Iwagaki Island with Chizuru and tries his best not to bust in his pants. Earlier, Chizuru was at the mall when she ran into Tanaka, who offered to carry some of her bags. She felt grateful, so to pay him back, she said she'd buy a lottery ticket, and if she won something nice, she'd let him have it. Even though Bro said it was not needed, she insisted on it, so Tanaka suggested they split the reward. She agreed and proceeded to buy the ticket, and she ended up winning an all-expense-paid trip to Iwagaki Island. At present, Tanaka is shocked she kept her word and wonders if it's really okay for him to be alone with another girl. However, he then recalls Christmas Eve when she admitted to being lonely, making him think she might have feelings for him. Just then, he sees her reading the tour guide, and she grabs his hand and drags him to a spot by the shore. Then suddenly, she strips to her swimsuit, which makes Tanaka's jaw drop. She says she wants to play in the water, but he shows her the no swimming sign, leaving her depressed. To cheer her up, Tanaka shows her they can play around the shore too, and then spots a hermit crab, which catches her attention too. However, she gets so distracted that she slips off the shore into the water, and her plot armor comes undone. Without thinking, Tanaka jumps into the water to help her out. But when he lifts her up, he's blessed with an unplotted view of her chocolate factory. Now flustered, he pushes her up even further, which causes her milk jugs to get exposed, and a hermit crab starts pinching her valves. Chizuru recoils back and lands on Tanaka's shoulders, telling him that she can't use her hands, and he must get the crab off her. Without looking, Tanaka goes in and ends up holding her other milk jug, and the double trouble makes Chizuru reach Cloud 9. Afterward, he sees her holding a book with the title, Spots for Men, and asks if she looked up spots for his sake. Chizuru admits that she did because she thought that he'd get bored with her, so she wanted him to have fun. Hearing this makes him blush, and he tells her he has fun with her regardless. Chizuru is relieved to hear this, and she suggests they head back since it's getting dark. She also says she's looking forward to tomorrow, and Chizuru blushes hard, asking himself if he has fallen for her. The next day, as they spend more time together, Tanaka's heart keeps racing around her. At night, she takes him on a mountain hike so they can get a good view for stargazing. However, it starts to rain, so they quickly find shelter in a cave, and Chizuru is depressed because she can't see the stars anymore. When she notices that Tanaka is feeling cold, she tries to warm him up with her jugs, causing him to jump back in panic. Because of this, they both end up deeper in the cave in an awkward position. However, Chizuru tells him not to move because they're in a stalactite cave and these little guys take centuries to grow, so she does not want to break any. After that, they move bit by bit, but Chizuru's jugs end up right in his face. And to make matters worse, water droplets make her buttons activate. After they free themselves, they feel bad because their plan to see the stars got ruined. But just as the clouds clear, the moonlight shines in the cave and lights up all the stalactites, which makes the cave look like the night sky. Chizuru says she wanted to see a shooting star, so he asks if her wish was to be loved by one of her students. When she says yes, he begins to laugh as he realizes that he has indeed fallen in love with her. He also panics because he said it out loud, but Chizuru puts up a peace sign, saying she's finally loved by one of her students. This makes him sad as he thinks she still sees him as a student, but she covers his eyes to prevent him from looking at her face, which is more red than a tomato. On Valentine's Day, Tanaka receives no gifts, and to rub salt in the wound, Taka shows up all smiling because Hikari gave him a gift. He then looks around to see that everyone is getting gifts except him, and after school ends, he's the last one in class. Bro starts cussing the plot gods for not giving him a chick, and when he finally decides to go home, he realizes there's a snowstorm outside. Not only that, all the trains and buses have stopped, but even then, Tanaka decides to take a walk. Just then, he hears something and looks to the side to see Chizuru falling face first into the snow. The two return inside and gather around a space heater to warm up since the power has gone out. Chizuru asks Tanaka why he's still at school so late, but he throws the same question back at her. leaving her flustered. Deciding to dry her wet clothes first, she asks him to turn around while she changes, which comes as a shock to him because usually she just changes in front of him. As Tanaka looks away, he accidentally notices a small gift tucked inside her clothes. Chizuru quickly hides it and insists he isn't supposed to see it. Tanaka assumes it's chocolate from Hikari, but before she can correct him, she starts sneezing from the cold. Realizing they have nothing else to keep warm, Tanaka goes through several options, but none of them work. That's when he realizes that chocolates help keep a person warm, so he suggests she eat the chocolate to help herself feel a little better. She initially refuses, but after he insists, she says she'll have it only if she eats it with her. Just as she grabs it, it slips from her hand and lands directly on her bazooka because it was already melted from the heater. She asks if he wants a piece, but Bro is not about to taste it from her melons. As he gets up to give her a wipe, he slips on a wet shirt and ends up with a mouthful of chocolate yiddies. As Chizuru makes happy noises, Bro quickly backs off and apologizes, but she shyly says it's okay and she was planning to give the chocolate to him anyway. She adds that she made it with Hikari's help, and Tanaka's heart races as he realizes she did it for him. He also notices the expression on her face, which tells him she really likes him, so he decides to make a move on the spot. He asks her if she remembers what he said at the island, and she admits that she does. This time, he asks her to look at her not as a student, but as a man because he wants to date her and break beds with her. However, Chizuru surprisingly says no, which breaks his heart, so he tries to get out of there before things get awkward. However, it's still snowing, so he just sits there in silence, not knowing that Chizuru has a note in the box and it says she wants him to wait till he graduates. Weeks later, it's the graduation ceremony, and Tanaka still doesn't have a chick. Afterward, the boys gather at Tanaka's place to talk to him about something, and when he asks, Sato says they're going on a trip and want to discuss the plan. Tanaka says he understands, but what he doesn't get is why all their teachers are in the kitchen making food. Just then, all the batter falls on Chizuru's shirt, and Hikari tells Tanaka to give her a change of clothes. Bro takes Chizuru to his room to find a new shirt, but he can't even look at her after the rejection. She congratulates him on graduating, and he nervously says she was a great teacher. At this, she says she's not his teacher anymore, so he doesn't need to call her that, and Tanaka feels heartbroken thinking she's cutting off the only tie they both had. He leaves the suit on the table and leaves the room, not realizing that she had more to say. Chizuru feels sad because she failed to convey her feelings, and then she sees a picture of her and Tanaka on his desk, so she decides to try again. However, she accidentally knocks the picture down, so she has to jump to grab it, which causes a thud. Also, the fishing rod falls on her, and when Tanaka comes in to make sure she's okay, he finds her all tangled up with her jugs out. To make matters worse, the string is also keeping the door shut, and if Tanaka pushes it, it gives Chizuru a pull. He then leaves to grab scissors, but he leaves the door open, which makes her feel embarrassed. Just then, she hears Hikari and Taka coming her way, and Hikari wants to catch Chizuru and Tanaka clapping. At this, Chizuru moves forward to close the door, and when Hikari sees this, she decides to investigate. At the last second, Tanaka jumps in with scissors and locks the door. He then looks up to see Chizuru's milk packs and quickly unties her. Afterward, she quickly hugs him and admits she didn't want anyone to see her bazookas except him. She adds that they're not teacher and student anymore, so she can finally say that she wants to ride his monster truck without any consequences. Tanaka is shocked and flustered, so she apologizes for what happened on Valentine's Day and explains that she was too shy to give him the letter. Tanaka is over the moon and happily accepts, right before rushing to the living room and happily announcing that he'll be joining them on the trip as well. He says he wants to go somewhere they can stargaze because someone wants to wish on a shooting star, which makes Chizuru blush. She then thanks him with a gentle smile, and Tanaka concludes she's not cold and expressionless like everyone says. Days later, Sato and Kana are going to see cherry blossoms, and Mayu is having a picnic with Suzuki. Hikari and Taka are having their own romantic moment, and the new couple also becomes a part of this. Just when they're about to kiss, they realize that all of them are there, which makes them embarrassed.